Welcome to the Have More Fun podcast.
My favorite one was when Bob came home from work and there was a help wanted sign that I'd put in the living room window. Why is the help wanted sign in the front window? And that was like a light bulb moment for me because I thought, well, Bob's going to see that and maybe ask the same thing. I need to know what it is that I really need.
We've got one, like that beat up old Suburban in the driveway. Yeah. That's our car. And I'm not doing that to go green. I could afford a Prius. But I just like, literally, we're doing it because we have one more thing in common.
In this episode, I talk with Bob and Maria about how they have developed uniquely awesome family traditions, how they find time for fun, and they share their best ideas on how to create a legacy. One of my favorite TED Talks of all time is called The Shared Experience of Absurdity by a guy named Charlie Todd. And in it, he shares how he and his friends have made it a mission to create moments that help people look up from their daily lives in order to give them a fun or unusual experience along with a great story to tell. From a no-pants subway ride to bursting into song in a grocery store as part of a spontaneous musical, or diving into the ocean in Coney Island wearing formal attire. Charlie and his friends are taking everyday situations and making them something unforgettable. Because we all have to go to the grocery store, right? So why not choose to have fun doing it? I read a statistic yesterday that the average human being lives 30,000 days. I did some math, and I've already lived 14,622 of them, which got me thinking about what I want to prioritize for the next half of my days. And the three things I decided on were fun, love, and legacy, because I have spent far too many days saying that I will have fun when my to-do list is complete, which has yet to happen, and I don't think I'm alone. Unfortunately, so many of us are disconnected from the concept of fun, and experts are saying that because our lives are so structured and serious, that we are forgetting how to play. We are literally losing the ability to have fun because we are choosing to value productivity over delight and failing to enjoy our everyday experiences. Stuart Brown, a professor emeritus of psychiatry at the University of California, San Diego, says that we as a culture are losing our sense of spontaneity. He says, "You're probably responsible, a hard worker, a moral person, and very involved with taking care of kids, parents, or the people around you. But when you're not experiencing playful moments, you're not honoring your own need for unfettered joy. And in so doing, your brain forgets how to have fun, and it begins to stop looking for it or even wanting it." And because of this phenomenon, we live in an era of seemingly limitless opportunities for fun and whimsy, and yet everyone seems perpetually stressed, overbooked, exhausted, and uptight. Everyone, that is, except Bob and Maria Goff. On the day I interviewed them, my husband Joe and I, along with our friend Matt, showed up to spend a few hours with them at their house in San Diego. I brought Bob some unopened Geodes, which he promptly took next door to a construction worker who was working on a neighbor's house and had him cut them open to see what was inside. Bob is contagiously curious and makes you want to be a better human being just by being in his presence. He offered to go out back and record this conversation on his boat in the bay behind his house simply because it would be fun. Bob practiced law for 25 years before becoming the Honorable Counsel to Uganda and publishing a New York Times best-selling book called Love Does. He put his personal cell phone number in the back of the book and answers hundreds of calls every day that he gets because of it. Maria, his wife, is beautiful, disarmingly vulnerable, and the kind of person you want to be your best friend. I learned that she and I share the habit of biting chocolates in half and then returning them to the box if we don't like what's inside, because chocolate with fruit inside is just not worth eating. Maria has made a career out of loving her family and neighbors, raising her children, and turning houses into homes. She calls Bob the most helpful and interesting man in the world, and together they have 3 adult kids who are starting families of their own. She recently wrote a beautiful book called Love Lives Here that you definitely want to pick up right this minute. What I love about Bob and Maria Goff is that they are reminding us that there is another way to live, and it is filled with adventure, fun, and meaning. And not only are they reminding us that it is possible, they are showing us how. And so here are my friends, Maria and Bob Goff. Okay, you guys, one of the things that I love that Lindsay said about your family, your daughter Lindsay.
Oh.
She wrote, I grew up in a home where practicality was frequently ignored in the name of whimsy, meaning, and legacy.
Yes.
I feel like that is what we all want our kids to write about us. And so how did you prioritize whimsy, meaning, and legacy over practicality?
Well, I think for Bob and I, before we got married, we talked about what our family could look like. And we both wanted to have something different than what we grew up in. We had an opportunity to just, do an Etch-a-Sketch on what was and create something new in our family. And we kind of imagined what it could possibly be and started infilling from there. And one of those things was how do you bring all of that into a family environment? And kids are so easy to be whimsical around and to not be practical with because they're crazy, their schedule's weird and their imagination is wonderful. So we just started to do really unlikely things with them. Like, I wonder if Lindsay was remembering when she went with you to London for a tea party on like a $99 ticket, airline ticket.
Oh my goodness, like on a whim.
Just a 10-year-old adventure with his daughter.
Yes.
Yeah,
just because, and you don't need to work for NASA to see the trajectory that'll have in your kids' lives. So you take things laden with meaning and tradition, and that there's a reason why you do everything that you do. And the more meaning they get, they become these beautiful anchors in your life. We always do the same thing on the same day. We always bury things. We always, and the list should be as long as possible. Like you're sitting at this table, and we have a couple tables in our lives, but underneath the table are all the signatures of the people that have sat at the table. And so you say, like, so why? Just because it's a beautiful thing. You got to.
I will totally sign it.
Just gave you a shirt.
But there's something beautiful about that. And then when they have their homes, I'll tell you what's underneath all their tables are the signatures of all the people.
So cool. And I love it because people feel like they're a part of your home, right? When their name is under your table, it's like they have jurisdiction here. There's something significant and special.
And long after they've left, it's like they're still here because they've left something of themselves. And, there'll be times where I'll be cleaning or whatever. I'll get under there and just...
I'm kind of impressed you're under the table cleaning. I mean,
I know. And I don't want to be cleaning, so I climb under the table to just gaze.
You're hiding under the table.
I love just looking over the years of all the names of the people and remembering the times that we've had with them.
It's so special, and I think that's what you two are brilliant at. It's like those tiny moments, those special things that are so memorable that really reshape people's hearts in a unique way, and you leave people better.
Thank you.
Whenever you encounter them.
One of the traditions that was handed down to our family, Maria's continued, in its room rent.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So when Bob's grandmother used the room that he usually stayed in when he went to visit her, she would have a jar and she would put money in it because she wanted him to know that I recognize that this is your room and I might need to do something in it, but I've paid you for the time that I used your room. And I thought that was such a sweet story that as soon as our kids moved out of the house and went away to college, I immediately put a jar in their room. And I'm like, his grandmother might have put coins. I'm putting $20 bills. I'm thinking... I know their budget and they're college kids, so that's been really fun.
And when they come over, it's really cute. Even though they're all grown up, they'll run upstairs to see how much room rent they got. Isn't that beautiful? And so those little traditions, it didn't matter if it's a pile of nickels, but the traditions that hold you together, remind you of who you are and what you're about. It's like a flag in the sand.
Declaring the things that are important. And you don't know what's going to stick. Like, I'm so pleased and surprised that that's what Lindsay wrote about. Because you just do these things and you hope they matter, but sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes a little bit of distance on something that you've done, a memory you've made, to realize that it actually mattered and it's special to them too. And that's what it's all about. It's filling in with pouring into their lives so that they look back on their childhood and feel like, wow, that was a good time.
Did it ever take extra energy? Like, was there a moment where you're like, I'm so tired, I don't feel like doing this, but I know that it matters?
I'm still tired. I'm tired right now. I don't know if that gear ever goes away. I think we could just learn how to like manage it from time to time. But yeah, I think that's just,
and it's just prioritizing
yeah,
whimsy, meaning, and legacy.
yes, yeah.
Saying that is the most important thing.
And being driven by the passion of that, like really wanting our family to be different than anything we had experienced. So it's like, it doesn't matter how tired we are. It doesn't matter how inconvenient it is. Like, let's just do this now, because there's a chance that it might matter in their lives later.
So good.
There's this underlying idea that we are each reflection of or reactions to the people who've been closest to us. So we would want for our children to be both reflections and reactions in beautiful ways. So like Lindsay Gough, for instance, like, so she grew up and her dad was Tigger, like me. And so she married this amazing guy who's just that he would be a different Enneagram number than me. So that's being a beautiful reaction to. So we don't have to react with conflict or all that, but just be a beautiful reaction or be a beautiful reflection. And I see things in each of the kids that reflect the beauty of what I know sweet Maria has instilled in them. And so if we are just as a couple cheering for each other to say, oh, you're going to be so good for them at that, instead of trying to modify each other's behaviors and contain them, to let it just be this beautiful chain reaction in the kids' lives. And that's what I'm seeing now, that we will never run out of things to talk about at the table, because we're just like if you want more faith, do more stuff, right? You want more to talk about? Just do more stuff. It doesn't matter. Just the silliest thing. We're still talking about a radio control airplane I got. I built this whole thing. It was like a work of art. We took it out for one flight. It lasted less than a minute, and I augured in. Just gone. And so that was the best $100 I ever wasted. Yeah. Because the kids are telling me how dad augured in the radio control airplane. And so the beautiful thing in that is that you don't have to have the big teachable moments. Now with kids, sometimes things won't work out. It's like not the event, it's what happens next in our marriages and our relationships with our kids. So when Lindsay called to say, in tears, my car's been towed away, I think it's been stolen or whatever, I just said, I could have said, you should have been more careful. Did you park in a red zone? I just said, let's get a new one. And she's like, wait, what?
It shocked her out of it.
And then we went and found out the tow yard that it got towed to, because you park in the red. But like that idea to just that moment of pause to say, what could we do to make this not the typical response? And as they see that modeled in our relationship, they'll see that carried through in their next relationships. I'm seeing that creativity in them now, and I see a lot of you in them. Yeah.
I think with if I could tell myself back then, one piece of advice, it would be to not take myself so seriously, because over the years, Bob is eventually rubbing off on me slowly but surely, but I see so much more the value of that and the end result now. So there's a benefit of having some runway behind me, is that I went, actually, all those crazy things, all the absurd responses that you would give the kids when things went wrong, where I would go, don't tell her we're getting her a new car. I don't think we can get her a new, that kind of thing, to be like, whoa, wait a minute, Maria, just take a breath. Don't take yourself so seriously. All that stuff will work out. All the details will eventually fall together.
So as your kids get married and other people join your family, are they jealous of how your kids grew up? Like, what is the narrative around that? Or are they just so excited to be part of?
I think they're curious, because I feel like they have each married somebody very different, but yet very similar. Our daughter-in-law is also a lawyer, and she's also a 9 on the Enneagram. So we're kind of kindred spirits in that way. And I just see them taking the steps to build their own life in the way that they want to have a family someday. And they're all like, they're trying to find houses and remodel them. And so a lot of that was just like kind of instilled in them and now they're sharing that with their spouses and the people that they love.
Yeah, it's this beautiful conga line. Each time somebody gets married and we have another person, our gene pool just went way up. Because they're amazing. Each of these people that get added to Team Gough, it's been so fun. It's like so Christmas morning. You open up the pack and be like, there you are. Yeah. So, and I can't wait for what lies ahead. One of the things that we try to do as like the next generation is think of ourselves as like plus 10 and minus 50. And I'll tell you what you mean. Like I'm 58. So think of Bob who's 68, the next version of Bob. So he's going to be a grandpa. So a lot of the decisions I make now are geared towards the guy that's plus 10. And then minus 50. Like think of the 8-year-old Bob. Like who's he? That like childlike faith. That so if you could know who you actually are right now, and then think of who you're turning into, but then don't forget that childlike faith, and then just grab a hold of all three of you, make all decisions together, right? And that's been super helpful. And so Maria and I are so different in these ways, and I think all together we make one really well-adjusted person.
I love that so much.
I have to get out his 8-year-old picture from time to time, and that's been really helpful. Because then it reminds me, wait a minute, we're not at war, we're at love. We're doing this together, and we're a team, and
that's powerful. We're not at war, we're at love.
Yeah, we've got a lot to learn from each other, and so whatever helps, and that picture does for me.
And I love how intentional you are with your choices. And in your book, Maria, Love Lives Here, you talk about kind of forming this board of directors.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that. And who is on your board?
Oh my gosh. So I am so glad that I realized that in order to do the things that I wanted to do as a mom in a different way, that I didn't need to be alone in that I could surround myself with people who made me more hungry in my faith, more strong in my resolve to do it differently, and also more available to my family. And I think we've all had people that might have been the opposite of that. Like they're just don't understand your faith, so they don't want to be your friend, or they're just, kind of undermine your efforts or try to take away, time that you might have for your own family. But instead, like build each other up and support each other up. And so I started calling them my favorite people or my board of directors. And some of those have come and gone over the years. I bet you've experienced this.
For a season, it works.
For a season, you're tight with these people, and then, life unfolds and there's new people that come along. And so mine have changed over the years, but one of them is my neighbor, Lori, right next door, who is just the most wonderful person. And we don't always see eye to eye on anything, but we have a mutual respect for one another. And we keep short accounts and tabs on how our families are doing and the struggles that we're going through. She also has adult kids and is now a grandmother, so she's a little bit further ahead of me in that area, and I just glean whatever wisdom I can get from Lori. And it usually happens right there in the front yard under the maple tree, or in her garden when she's watering.
What about the tire swing? Does it ever happen on the tire swing?
Yeah, we haven't climbed up on the tire swing, but I'll suggest that next time I see her.
Next time.
Yeah. So I really recommend people doing that. To find
so people. Intentionally inviting people to speak into your life and giving perspective.
Yeah, and you don't even need to tell them. You don't need to give them those titles or promotions along the way. But you just need to know in your heart when things all hit the fan, those are the people that you can call. And then that's the antidote to feeling isolated sometimes as a mom at home. If you're alone, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got a problem, but I don't know who to turn to. And times when Bob hasn't been available or just couldn't help, I would think of the board of directors.
And I love when you're talking about your neighbor, how you don't always see eye to eye on things.
Yeah.
Like it's not always that they have to see eye to eye with you. Sometimes that's super helpful to have someone with a little bit different perspective.
I am so much more open-minded, and she has a clearer view of God because we're free to just express our feelings with each other and not be judgmental or try to push our own agendas on each other. It's just how to love each other.
Bob, do you have a board of directors? A personal board of directors?
You're 8.
Yes, my 8 people. There are people, but we kind of like what Sweet Maria said, that isn't, we don't have a name for it, but they're the go-to people. For instance, like if I go missing, which is actually, we have this weird relationship with death around here. We just don't say like died. We just say like, when we had like rabbits that died, we said they got away.
Yeah.
So literally, if I say I get delayed, like the capital D delayed, so Maria knows who to call, right? And there's like one piece of paper to look at. Like this is everything here it is. This what to do, here's who to call. And she's like so high functioning, she could do it all without me. But that's a great way for us to sync up. And I think that for moms at home to find a way, I could just say to communicate to your spouse, if you have one and they walk through the door, or the people that you love the most, you some way to communicate what's happened between the last time you saw them and right now. So I'd go away, I'd be a trial lawyer. And then I'd come home after 8 or 10 hours and walk in with Maria's got all these kids running around. And so I would be tickled, like, how's it going? And she'd be like, no. So after a couple misses, I went out to the garage, I got a pole, and then this little koala bear with it, they've spring loaded, you pinch them.
The arms?
By the arms, and they come out. Yeah. So I put little plastic leaves at the top of this pole and put a base on it. And I put the koala bear halfway up. And I told the kids, don't let the koala bear get in the leaves. And I didn't tell her what would happen if they got in the leaves, but like not good. So I made the koala bear for me. So I would come home, and if the koala bear was down by the tabletop, I'm like, we're good. But if it was literally hanging from the ceiling fan, it was just this immediate way to sync up to say, like, warning, right? So Maria's always been great at coming up with a shorthand way to let me know, kind of dial in the zip code, like how we doing today? How was the last 8 hours? And if there was one of the ways to care for the people that you love is to find a way to sync up with them effectively. And so those little prompts, I'm just saying on behalf of every man on earth, like that actually is helpful because we don't always get it. We just, if you're a 7, you just assume everything's awesome because you're alive, so it must be. And actually everything isn't always awesome. And a great way to help you to connect would be a little prompt, like something, whatever it is, a mood ring, whatever, but to communicate to the people you love the most how you're really doing. And it draws you into these beautiful conversations. So why is the koala bear on the fan? Where'd the koala bear go, honey?
My favorite one was when Bob came home from work and there was a help wanted sign that I'd put in the living room window. Why is the help wanted sign in the front window? But I had
awesome?
had a really hard day.
Where did you find it?
At a big box store here locally, and I had all the kids, all 3 of them. They were small, pushing them through the store in a cart. And as we were going through checkout, which is like the horrible zone, right, with little kids, they happened to have all these signs set out for like businesses to buy, and one of them was the black and white help wanted sign, and I just thought, boy, isn't that the truth? So I just instinctively grabbed it, put it in the cart. We're bringing this home. And then I came home, put it in the front window, and immediately felt self-conscious that I had this help wanted sign in the front of our home. And I thought, anybody going by right now, if they see it, then they might come to the front door and ask what the job is. And that was like a light bulb moment for me, because I thought, well, Bob's going to see that and maybe ask the same thing. I need to know what it is that I really need. And so before he got home, I really thought that through. I mean, I didn't necessarily need to, hire out, but actually it came down to, I just need some time alone. Like moms don't get that very much, or you're surrounded by children. So I needed time alone. I needed us to have time alone. So in a way, I guess we did hire out, because we found a really great college gal up at Point Loma Nazarene, and she came like on every Wednesday, gave me a couple of hours to get stuff done so I could feel efficient during the day.
Totally.
And then she came back on Friday night so we could have a date night. And that was it. Sometimes when we hit those rough patches, we think we need to make these major course redirections. And in reality, it just took that one little sign and a few minutes to really think through what it is. What is it that I really need?
And then you were brave enough to take the step to actually do what you needed.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother
That
step.
is. I think a lot of people get tripped up on that, but that's where Bob and I really work well as a team, is like, I can think of something and then he knows how to execute it.
I just assumed when it was up there, she wasn't saying she needed help. She thought I needed help. So we've done the things that are helpful along that. Maria had been aware of this place called Onsite. Yes. And she said, buddy, I think you really ought to go there. I'm like, oh, heck no. Like 1,000 times no. You do not know how not into a week of counseling I would be. But she's like, like literally your issues have issues. So I went.
Sometimes you need someone else to mirror.
Let the healing begin. And one of the things that it gave us is just one more thing in common. And that's one of the things that would be a hallmark of our relationship, is to have more things in common. We've got one, like that beat up old Suburban in the driveway. That's our car. And I'm not doing that to go green. I could afford a Prius. But I just literally, we're doing it because we have one more thing in common. Right? Yeah. So we just get to decide if we'll go together or share the car or pick up groceries or whatever. And so if you could, with the people that you love the most, some of the moms will be married, some won't, but wherever anybody's come from, find the people you love the most and have more in common with them.
The subtitle of your book really so powerful, and it really made me stop and think for a minute about, I'll read the subtitle and then we can talk about it. Okay, so finding what you need in a world telling you what you want.
Yep.
Did I read that right?
I know. I've done that before too when I've said it out loud. I'm like, is that it?
Yeah. But that whole idea of we are bombarded by messages, right? You need this. You should have this.
Totally.
And really taking a couple minutes to recalibrate and say, but what do I really need?
Yes.
Have you had a moment over the past month or so where you're like, I have been getting messages that I should want this, but what I really need is something different?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think the thing that of the season that I'm in right now is a really unique one for me. So I'm thinking I need to be doing something because I'm in between the book being published and I'm anticipating grandchildren in the near future. There's no announcement or anything, but I'm kind of in that in between and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. And so I can get caught up on what the world says, like you should be productive, you should be starting a business, you should start a blog, you should put something on Etsy, you should whatever, start the next book, something. And I have to kind of quiet my thoughts a little bit and just think, I need to sit with this a little bit longer. I need to really reflect on how far God has brought me, who I know that I am today, and what do I want to be in the future. And of course, we like to say that we're all just trying to be more like Jesus, but on a more practical level, what will that look like? So every decision that I make right now in this season that I'm in and combating in my head what the world is saying is successful, I have to just take a break and just write some things out, talk to Bob about them, and then move forward in a slower pace, not so frantic and hectic. And that's what the world feeds into. I mean, you just watch TV for 5 minutes and you get bombarded with a couple of commercials and can make you feel bad about your life.
Totally.
But if you just ignore that and just keep your eyes focused on Jesus and keep your heart open to what he might have planned for you, eventually I think what will resonate the most are the truest things in your life of what maybe he would have for you to be. So
that's beautiful.
I'm in that season.
Okay, I have one last question for you guys.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you never got?
Ooh.
I could take a swing at that.
Okay.
This idea that it'll work. We grow up with parents. They just, we get the ones that we get, and they build beautiful things into our lives. But sometimes people, when they want to express love, they actually instill fear by mistake. And so one of the things that I've tried to instill in my kids when I'm expressing love is actually that spirit of adventure, that this is not a business trip, it's an adventure. And so on adventure, it's not all planned out. And I think that's just modeling Jesus. And he's just like, where are we going to stay? What are we going to eat? He's like, I mean, if he's omnipotent, he knew. He just said, no, I want to keep this an adventure, not a business trip. I'm not going to tell you. But I will give you let me flip to the end of the page. The last page of the book, we're sitting at the feet of Jesus. And I don't know for each of my kids what the last page will look like, but I want them to have chapter after chapter after chapter that just say, it'll work. You got this idea? Dude, it'll work.
It'll work.
Like that idea to fail, try it. Don't fail, watch it. because a bad day wouldn't be trying something and having not work. It would be wanting to do something and not try.
Wow.
So that would be the advice, I think, that just because of how I was raised, that wasn't chapter headings. Those are all the chapters, every single one that I would want to instill with my kids.
Yeah. And I think I'd have to circle back to that, don't be too hard on yourself. I think I needed to hear that more often, and I didn't. So I want to make sure that is a message that I can give other women that are navigating their way through motherhood, because it's filled with landmines. It's a target-rich environment, as we say. And so to not be too hard on yourself, but to just take the time to enjoy it. It's going to be okay.
I feel like I'm a better parent just by like being in Bob and Maria's presence. Seriously.
Idea of curiosity too.
Yeah.
I think there's such a beautiful thing to instill in young kids, to be curious about everything. Like, why are bananas yellow? And
What
like,
a
can you
gift to offer
really
them,
pet a bee on the back when it's drinking water and not get stung? Literally,
When
try
they're
it.
drinking, you can pet them?
I'll give you an example. You gave me a geode. Right? So that was like lasted 5 minutes before we found a guide that had the ability to cut stone in half. And now we know what's inside. Don't leave it. Don't be okay with not knowing. Like literally just cut that thing open. Let's see what's in there.
Yeah.
And that idea, and it almost doesn't, what matters is that you did. Like now you know. And if we could instill that in our marriages, like just be curious, because your husband was really curious about you when you were dating, right? He wanted to know everything, right? But to stay curious about so what does it feel like with work, with family, with career, with relationships and all that.
Is that asking good questions?
It's, I think the questions come, instead of focusing on the good questions, have mountains of curiosity, the questions will come.
Okay.
If you just stay curious.
And I would say pay attention too, because I think a lot of times we've got, our blinders on and we're just leaning into the tasks of the day. And it's hard to stop for a second and just notice each other, or notice what the kids are doing, and to just take it in and not be so, charge ahead, but to really pay attention to what are the things that matter to them. What are their gifts? What are their skills? What do they seem to be interested in? What kinds of things Bob seemed to be doing more of? Maybe we could do more of that together. So
thank you guys so much.
Hey, thanks a million.
So
This is
good.
good.
I've learned a lot personally just in this conversation. So I can't wait for all of our moms to hear it.
Standing
me too.
ovation for those moms that are out there.
Yeah,
it's
we
heroes
love you.
work.
It really is.
Thanks again. Hey, thanks so much for listening today. I have some live podcast events happening around the country where I'm going to be inviting you to show up to a secret location to be part of the recording and to help me interview. So follow me on Instagram and Facebook, where I will be sharing all the details. Now go out and have more fun, and don't come back until you do.